Bruce, you're...
Okay, I think I'm live now. Good evening, everyone. My name is Bruce Johnson, and I serve as the Chief of the Auxiliaries Youth Programs Division. This evening is our second quarterly AuxScout All Hands Staff Forum for 2021. I hope that all AuxScout staff were informed about this forum, and I appreciate the many questions that were submitted in advance. We're going to start with a few AuxScout basics. Next, we'll cover some news topics, and finally, we'll answer your questions and as many discussion topics as time allows. Tonight's forum will be about 60 minutes, and we have a very full agenda. If you would, please keep your mics muted so please don't turn them on. Feel free to leave your video camera on, though. If you have a comment or question, please type it into the chat box. Holly is monitoring that. Depending on how the time goes, we may be able to address your chat box questions. Otherwise, we'll respond in writing after the forum. During our January staff forum, we discussed several topics that new AuxScout staff officers should know. If you're new and you missed the January forum or you just need a refresher, I'd urge you to go to the AuxScout YouTube channel and watch the January 2021 forum recording. We won't cover the same ground here, but I want to remind you about a few points. We'll mix in some questions that you ask about some of the orientation topics. If you haven't already done so, get to know the AuxScout Memorandum of Agreement, or MOA, and the Standard Operating Procedure, or SOP. They're both online, and there's an AuxScout workshop number 201 that explains the SOP in detail. The SOP outlines how we should be working with the Sea Scouts. Although the SOP is written for auxiliaries who work with Sea Scouts, it also provides the ground rules for Sea Scouts who are interacting with the auxiliary and with the Coast Guard. There are several important online resources that you need to be thoroughly familiar with. You don't need to memorize them, but knowing what they say will help you answer questions quickly. They'll also give you ideas for what your next steps should be. Of course, the first place to go is AuxBWiki, which is the auxiliary website that provides detailed information about AuxScout. It can be reached from tinyurl.com/AuxBWiki. And throughout this presentation, Holly is going to be copying the URL into the chat box. So if you want to keep copies of it as we go along, just copy them out of chat. Take some time to review AuxBWiki carefully. If you have questions about Sea Scouting or AuxScout, chances are you'll find your answers here. Make sure that you tell all of your shipmates about this resource as well. The official Sea Scouts BSA website is seascout.org. That's Sea Scout singular. Although this is not an auxiliary website, it provides detailed information about Sea Scouting, our official youth program. There's even a page about how the Sea Scouts work with us, and that's at seascout.org/cgaux. We have a very active Facebook group with over 1,300 members at this point at facebook.com/groups/AuxScout. AuxScout program, training, workshop, and resource announcements will always appear here first. If you are a Facebook user, please, please, please subscribe to this group. It's really important. We also have an AuxScout YouTube channel with over 60 videos so far. The URL is on this slide, or you can use your camera to shoot the QR code in the lower right corner. All AuxScout and STEM workshops, public affairs videos, and other cool stuff are available here. Please subscribe and ring the bell so that you'll be notified when new videos are available. I keep on talking about this really important resource. We have an interactive map that shows where the auxiliary flotillas and Sea Scout ships are in your area and how to contact them. Its address is tinyurl.com/AuxScoutMap. Take a look at your area. If there are places where there are flotillas but no Sea Scout groups, maybe you'll want to start a ship there. Conversely, an area with Sea Scouts but no flotilla might be a good place for the auxiliary to expand. So check it out. Coast Guard headquarters is really serious about getting auxiliaries BSA youth protection trained. They want everyone to take YPT, and certain jobs require it. The online training takes about 90 minutes and it's very informative. From my own experience, I can tell you that I learned a lot about not only protecting young people, but also about protecting myself. As you know, YPT training completion is required for all AuxScout officers, as well as any auxiliaries who work directly with Scouts. After you've taken the 3 learning modules and passed the YPT test, you'll need to print out your YPT certification certificate. And what I'm going to do now is walk you through the process of how to get that certificate. We've heard from a number of people who have found it a little difficult to find the completion certificate, and this is a quick and easy way to get to it, or at least as easy as I can make it. And incidentally, this PowerPoint slide deck will be available for download from the AuxB Wiki site, and I'll be giving you a link to it at the end of this workshop. So from the home screen of my.scouting.org, click the down arrow next to the menu in the upper left corner. So here's the down arrow, and click My Training. This will take you to a listing of which BSA training courses you've taken. On the left-hand side of the screen, select Completions. That's this thing here. Scan down the list and look for Youth Protection Training Certification course Y01. That's this one here. Don't do YPT certification test. That's not what your DIROX is looking for. Select, click on the Youth Protection Training Certification button, and what you'll find when you do that is there will be a certificate icon that will appear on the menu bar at the top of the page. At this point, what you want to do is click Certificate. When you do that, a pop-up menu will appear that's labeled Opening Proxy.pdf. What you need to do is select Save File and then click the OK button. The next thing you do is click your browser's Downloads button and drag off the proxy PDF. So what I've done here is, you see I've clicked the Downloads button, and here is the file. And at this point, what I did was I clicked the left mouse button and held it down and dragged this file onto my computer's desktop. And so that's what you're seeing right here. What you should do, incidentally, once you've done that, is rename that file to something that's a little bit more descriptive, like maybe YPT certification and the date, and then save it to some place on your computer where you'll be able to find it in the future. Now, the Ypt Completion Certificate should look like this, and notice that it says Youth Protection Training Certification. If it talks about passing the test, you've got the wrong one. The other thing that you'll see is that it will have an expiration date. This is my most recent Ypt certification, and you see that I took it in December of last year, and this is good for until December of 2022. As it happens in my local Scout Council, I have to take it every year, but most councils don't require that, so don't worry about that. All I'm talking about is what you need to do to meet the Coast Guard rules on this. What you want to do now is attach that PDF to an email message and send it to your flotilla commander, who will send it into Dirox to enter into AuxData 2. And yes, I know that in some districts, they handle that process differently. So if you're unsure whether your district handles it that way, ask your DSOAS, who will certainly know what your district Dirox office wants for getting that into your record. And while we're at it, I want to mention that if you want to save completion certificates for other BSA training courses, you will just follow the same procedure and select the courses that you want to save certificates for. Now, we're getting questions about saving a completion certificate for Sea Scout Adult Leader Basic Training. Up until recently, my.scouting.org was generating a certificate for the entire course, and for some reason, it doesn't seem to be doing that now. But you can still get completion certificates for each of the 8 modules of the course. My recommendation would be for you to save each of the completion certificates. You can see many of the modules on this screenshot. It's worth saying that as of today, AuxData 2 can only record Ypt completions, but that's going to be changing pretty soon. One of the questions that came up in concerning whether auxiliaries working with Sea Scouts or Sea Scout auxiliaries need to have Ypt training if they're working on boat crew training. That's going on here in Maryland, and I'm sure it is in quite a few other places right now. Let me begin by saying that the Coast Guard is recommending that all auxiliaries take Ypt training. That said, that's not the same as saying that everyone must take Ypt. If you're getting underway with Sea Scout Youth or Sea Scout auxiliaries, that is, auxiliaries who are Sea Scouts and under the age of 17, you must take Ypt, and the coxswain must confirm that you've taken it. If you're teaching Sea Scout Youth boat crew skills while ashore, the same holds true. If, on the other hand, you're teaching a mixed group of auxiliaries that includes Sea Scout auxiliaries, and you're teaching them online, then you don't have to take Ypt. Nevertheless, you must never interact with Sea Scout Youth or Sea Scout auxiliaries one-on-one without another adult present. That holds true for any in-person, email, video conferencing, or social media communication. Okay, and now the news. First off, I'd like to welcome 3 new members of the youth programs team. Patrick Hickey of 8th Western Rivers will be taking over, actually he has taken over as the branch chief for Atlantic West. Patrick recently completed 2 years serving as district captain and brings years of experience in the auxiliary and scouting. Ron Blaisdell is the new branch assistant for our photo archives. While he's working on that project, he's also going over AuxB Wiki and will be cleaning it up and improving navigation on that very important resource. Finally, Jim Wolfe has been added to the STEM education team with an assignment to STEM projects and Academy liaison. Jim has served as an Academy admissions partner for many years, and like Ron Blaisdell, has many years of experience working with the Sea Scouts. Welcome, teammates. I know that you'll do a great job for the auxiliary and the Sea Scouts. Now, I was going to introduce you face-to-face to this gentleman this evening, but I understand that he's on the way to the airport to pick up his bride. But let me go ahead and introduce him anyway, and Holly can tell him later that we embarrassed him in front while he was away. I'd like to introduce Eric May, the new staff officer for Division 6 in 5th Southern. Until recently, Eric was Commander May, 5th Southern's Director of Auxiliary. When he retired, he joined the auxiliary, and his first assignment was to assume the AuxScout staff officer position for Division 6 in Virginia. Speaking for myself, I've worked with many directors of auxiliary or DIROXs, but Eric was head and shoulders the best people person I've had the pleasure of working with. Welcome aboard, Eric. We're really pleased that you've joined us. And incidentally, the picture on the right, well, actually both of these pictures show him at charter presentation ceremonies in 5th Southern. As you've probably heard, the Boy Scouts of America has reviewed its organizational structure, and it'll be changing soon. There are currently 4 divisions, each of which having between 5 and 10 areas, or 4 regions and something like 24, 27 areas. This structure has been in place with minor adjustments since the mid-1980s. Although this structure has many advantages, BSA's organizational review concluded that there was too much bureaucracy and not enough support for local councils. Under the new plan, the council's role will not be changing, though the current trend of merging smaller councils into larger ones will continue. Those of you in the San Francisco Bay Area and in Michigan certainly are already familiar with that process. What will be changing is that the regions and areas will be going away, and in their place, come June 1st, they'll be replaced by 16 national service territories. Now, I'm sure you're wondering aloud why the 16 new national service territories couldn't exactly line up with the auxiliaries' 16 districts. But the new territory structure tries to balance out roughly the same number of councils and membership in each, with each territory having at least a couple of very strong councils that can support the smaller, weaker councils. So what does this mean to us? Well, divisions are probably mostly interacting with local councils, and this relationship isn't going to change at all. The SOAS or the division commander will continue to work with the council commodore or council Sea Scout committee where there is one, or with local ships, and probably also with the council commissioner and professional staff. None of that will be changing. What will change is that the 4 regional commodores and the 24 something area commodore positions are going away and will be replaced by 16 territory commodores who will be members of the National Sea Scout Committee. As of today, 14 of those 16 territory commodores have been identified and selected, and work is continuing on the 2 remaining positions that are still open. Although I personally know who the selected territory commodores are, that information is not public knowledge yet and is embargoed until a general announcement is released. I expect that's going to happen sometime in the next 5 or 6 weeks. Once I can share the names and contact information, I'll push that information to staff through the DSOASs. So let me pause for a moment and ask if there are any questions about any of that.
Bruce, are those territories for all of BSA or just the Sea Scouts?
That's a great question. It's for all of BSA. I'd like to say that there were Sea Scouts in every council, but that simply isn't true. I think currently about 2/3 of the councils have at least one Sea Scout group. Some councils have many more than that, but there are quite a few councils that have no Sea Scouts in them. So this organization reflects BSA as a whole. And as soon as I can share with you the contact information for the new territory commodores, I will. Any other questions about this?
This is
Okay.
Patrick. I had
Hi.
one about
Sure.
the data, and I was going to wait, but this is a good time. So earlier in the presentation, you showed the map that has all of the flotillas and all of the Sea Scout ships on
Right.
it. I spent, I don't know, a couple of hours today on it, and then it just struck me somewhere behind the GIS representation on that map
Right.
is the data file.
Right.
And I would be interested in knowing if I could get an extract of the data file. I'm trying to do a little analytical work, and it was taking me forever to click on each one of the little bubbles and type it in.
If you would send me an email with that question, I will find out. I think the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. All right, let me keep on moving on because we have some more stuff to cover. Let's turn now to auxiliary chartered Sea Scout ships. As of today, there are 16 BSA chartered auxiliary ships. At the end of the 2020 calendar year, nearly all of our ships went through their annual recharter process, and 3 failed to turn in their paperwork on time. Of those, ship 171 in D7 has since rechartered, but they're still waiting for their council to process the paperwork. We haven't gotten an update yet on ship 8511 in 8th Western Rivers, and ship 2511 in 5th Southern has definitely dropped, falling victim to COVID inactivity. I'd like to remind you that if your flotilla or division charters a ship, your responsibility doesn't end once you sign the charter paperwork. You're responsible for monitoring their progress and taking steps to ensure that their program is strong and active. Also, please remember that they are required to have a Coast Guard charter. Looking at this spreadsheet, 4 of the 16 current flotilla-sponsored ships have not requested Coast Guard charters from DIROCS. This is not an optional step. This must be done at the same time that the original BSA charter is requested. If you have questions or need help, please reach out to Bart Knapp of my staff. He's a whiz with this and can point you in the right direction to make this process as simple as possible. And all of you should have received a copy of this spreadsheet, so I don't think I need to go into it in any more detail. This is just a quick reminder that everyone should be subscribed to the AuxScout YouTube channel. On this screen, I'm trying to find my cursor, there it is. On this screen, you can see that the subscribe button has been clicked. It says subscribed here. As has the bell next to it. I have arrows pointing at it. By clicking on the bell, which YouTubers say is ringing the bell, by doing that, you'll be notified whenever a new video is added to the channel. There's a lot of great content on the channel, including recordings of nearly all of our workshops. Check it out and tell your friends. Similarly, if you're a Facebook user, please join the AuxScout Facebook group. And we've already talked about why that's important. So several of you have asked about the Auxiliaries National Convention, which most of us usually refer to as NACON, and which is scheduled to happen in August in Orlando. Because of the uncertainties that COVID has caused, there will be no workshops or exhibits at this year's NACON. We had plans in place for both workshops and exhibits, but we'll push those back to 2022. I've also received no information about awards that were supposed to be presented at last year's NACON. I'm going to continue to ask about that, and we'll let you know when there is news on that subject. I really appreciate the hard work that you're putting into this effort. So before I talk about any of this, is JD DeCastro with us this evening? Okay.
I don't think so, Bruce.
Okay. Yeah, I can never be sure whether he's going to be able to join us. As you probably know, he's a Coast Guard helicopter aviator, and his first responsibility after his family is rescuing people who get themselves into trouble on the water. So he could very well be out flying right now. So let me just give you a quick overview of what's going on in our STEM efforts. As you know, we have a Coast Guard Tech Talks workshop every month on the 4th Tuesday of the month at 2100 Eastern Time. The workshop for this month is on engines. And all of those workshops have been recorded and are available on the YouTube channel. A couple of months ago, we had a workshop with the Director of Admissions at the Coast Guard Academy, and the subject of that workshop was what's involved in applying to go to the Coast Guard Academy. That workshop has also been recorded and is available on the YouTube channel. Now, a couple of things that have come up in the last 6 weeks or so. We got approval for Sea Scouts to be included in the AIM, that's the Academy Introduction Mission Summer Experience. And I know that we have received a number of Sea Scout applicants, and the application deadline for that is the 15th, which is this week. So if you know of any rising seniors, or is it rising juniors? I'm not exactly sure, but the website explains that. Encourage them to apply to go to that. The application period for Sea Scouts being included in the Coast Guard Bark Eagle summer cruise has closed out. And as always, we get quite a few Sea Scouts interested in doing that. We have a number of other STEM projects in the works. The STEM branch has drafted a national STEM competition for the Sea Scouts, and that is being considered right now by both the National Sea Scout Committee and BSA's STEM Committee. So the initial reaction was very positive, but I will get back to our team once we hear what the disposition is on that. There's also work underway at revising the NOVA and Supernova STEM programs for Sea Scouts. And we're also looking into developing a STEM week at the Coast Guard Academy. That, needless to say, is not going to happen for this summer. Okay, and I apologize for blasting through that quickly. I know that JD could have done a better job than I did, but at least it gives you a sense of what they're up to. They're really doing a great job for us. My last piece of news is that AuxData 2 is in the process of having some change made to it that will affect us. The enhancement will enable entry of the other BSA training courses that are required for some auxiliaries to complete to be in compliance with the AuxScout SOP. It'll be possible for SOISs to input Sea Scout Adult Leader Basic Training, BSA Safety Afloat, and BSA Safe Swim Defense completions. As you probably know, getting underway with Sea Scout Youth or Sea Scout Auxiliaries requires that at least one auxiliarist also be CPR certified. That qualification is currently in AUX Data 2. I know that this enhancement is in process and it should be appearing soon. When it's available, we'll let you know and we'll provide instructions for submitting your completion certificates. In the meantime, just save them on your personal computer. And please don't spring this on your SOIS who has not heard this yet. He or she is going to get instructions through his or her chain of leadership on what this is all about and what they need to be doing to hook into this. So that's all the news that's fit to print. What I want to do now is to turn to your questions and discussion topics.
Yeah, Bruce, there were some questions in chat
Sure.
that I didn't
Sure.
want to interrupt your train of thought.
Is there anything that we need to cover right now?
We can do it whenever.
Okay. Well, let's do this. Let me get through the questions that are in the slide deck, and then let's get to the questions that were in chat, and then we'll get to the discussion topics. How's that sound? Okay.
Sounds good.
Continuing with AUX Data 2, I've received a couple of questions about how to record your AuxScout related hours. The short answer is that you record them just like you would any other hours. The key difference is adding an operations code to the report. Now, I'm going to say something that's both confusing and maybe doesn't make a lot of sense. If you are not a registered Sea Scout leader, you should add the operation code AUXSCO1 to the hours forms that directly relate to your AuxScout activity only. Don't apply it to the hours that are not AuxScout related. On the other hand, if you are a registered Sea Scout, apply the operations code AUXSCO2 to all of your hours forms, regardless of whether they're Sea Scout related or not. This is what the SOP tells us to do, and this is how Coast Guard headquarters wants it done. Finally, most of your interaction with the Scouts falls neatly into 7030 codes, except for miscellaneous meetings with Sea Scouts. And for those, I'd recommend that you use the code 10J, which is labeled ComRel, which is short for community relations. We are fulfilling a role on behalf of the Coast Guard, reaching out to the Boy Scouts of America, and that's where those hours need to go. If, on the other hand, you are teaching something, there are other codes for that. Okay. Now here's a question that came in. As an auxiliarist, we're currently not allowed to do in-person PA and PE with local groups. Are we allowed to do this with Sea Scout, wearing our Sea Scout leader hats on? And I understand that in some areas you're able to do that, but I also know that in some areas, including my own sector, that is absolutely true. And then the person asking this was talking about how they had been asked to do a presentation at a local boating club. And my answer is that in this situation, remember that you must follow Coast Guard rules if you're functioning as an auxiliarist, no exceptions. If you're functioning as a Sea Scout leader, on the other hand, you must follow the rules set out by your local Scout Council. And if you're doing that in another council area, find out what their rules are and follow them. Again, no exceptions. Don't take any unnecessary risks. And I know that my sector command would urge you to use your risk management TCT training to assess whether the reward adequately offsets the risks. If the reward doesn't offset the risks, don't do it. Of course, if you are not functioning as an auxiliarist, don't wear the auxiliary uniform, and you can't record it in your aux data 2 hours as an auxiliary mission. Here's another question that came up. There's a rumor that there's a new regulation that requires anyone receiving training on an auxiliary surface facility that they'll be required to have a PLB. If this is the case, that would mean any Sea Scout who is aboard a facility as a guest will not be able to receive any training while aboard the facility, and will just stand there and watch. Any credence to this? Well, let me begin by saying that there's no such instruction from Coast Guard headquarters. If there was one, it would be in the AuxScout SOP. That said, Coast Guard districts can develop policy implementation guidance that may be more prescriptive than the SOP. My recommendation is not to give any credence to rumors unless you have written policy guidance that extends beyond the SOP. Follow the SOP. If you're unsure, ask your district's OTO. Your DSOAS should be able to ask the OTO directly. If your OTO is unsure, sit down with him or her and explain what the SOP says. Remember that the OTO is there to help keep you and your scouts safe. So work with him as an ally, not as an adversary. And that last warning is something I would say about an awful lot of things. You're going to get better results if you work with somebody as a partner rather than try to argue with them. Now, this is a really interesting question that came in. I'd like to be sure we understand the process and associated limitations for Sea Scout ships that choose to create a personalized unit patch. And the person sending this in sent a draft patch design, and they correctly quote the uniforming regulation from the Sea Scout manual about what the patch needs to look like and generally what the size of the thing needs to be. And that's all well and good. So here's my response to all of that. It's very common for Sea Scout ships to create their own patches to be worn on the right sleeve of the Sea Scout uniform. This is a great way to build unit pride, and the cost is really not very much. Given the enthusiasm that many Sea Scouts and auxiliarists have for this partnership, it's only natural that people will want to incorporate the Coast Guard auxiliary emblem in the Sea Scout, on the Sea Scout uniform. I have a single word in response to this: don't. Any insignia that incorporates the auxiliary emblem must be approved by Senior Auxiliary Manager. Section 1.B.13 of the SOP explains this, and I have a long quote here that I really don't want to read to you, but go to that section in the SOP and read it yourself. If the ship has not received prior approval in writing, they do not have permission to incorporate the auxiliary logo into any insignia. I can also tell you that BSA would currently not permit this. This might change in the future, but for current planning, do not incorporate the auxiliary logo in local Sea Scout unit insignia. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Let's go to the questions. And Holly, can you kind of walk me through what the questions were?
Well, here's one from Chris Ware.
Mm-hmm.
Do Sea Scouts need to complete the same high risk form that DIROCs are requiring for assignment to duty?
Only if they are Sea Scout auxiliaries. And this is a point I want to I think some people are having trouble latching on to. A Sea Scout who becomes a Coast Guard auxiliarist is an auxiliarist, and they have to follow all of the same rules that any other auxiliarist would have to. We can't mandate that Sea Scouts who are not Coast Guard auxiliarists fill out paperwork of that sort. We have other questions?
Yeah, let me find another one here. Chuck Miracle was saying, how do we address Sea Scouts training on auxiliary facilities that may not be auxiliary members regarding requirement for PPE, and if a guest under the current policy cannot do anything but enjoy a boat ride?
All right, this is a really great question, and the SOP actually covers that. The deal is that when you request orders to get underway, you are required in that request to tell the order issuing authority that you would like to include Sea Scouts, and you have to include their names as well. It is the order issuing authority's right to say no to that if they feel that the patrol is inappropriate to have Sea Scout youth aboard. You should ask the Sea Scouts to bring their life jackets. Most Sea Scout ships have more than enough Coast Guard approved life jackets to get underway. If they're unable to provide appropriate life jackets, it's okay to loan them PPE for the course of that particular underway session. You can't issue it to them and let them walk away with it, but you can loan them a life jacket and whatever else you have available. And then as for what the Sea Scout can or cannot do while you're underway, that is up to the local district and the order issuing authority to define what is allowed and what isn't allowed. It's certainly allowed to instruct the scouts, but they may not be permitted to do anything in terms of operating the boat or anything of that sort. So you want to check with your OTO and your order issuing authority to confirm what you're allowed to do with the Sea Scouts when they're aboard.
Here's just a real quick question. I'm not beating the horse on this, but I do have a quick clarification. The AuxLos are hung up on the fact that do we process the Sea Scout as a guest because the current policy requires anybody who's not an auxiliarist or a boat crew trainee has to come on board as a guest approved by the AuxLo, the local AuxLo. And if they are a guest, the policy for a guest is very specific. They're a boat rider. So is there a way we can deconflict the policy between that BSX policy and the one that's for the Sea Scouts that says the Sea Scouts can train?
I would love to be more specific and more prescriptive on that subject. And I can tell you that BSX, as much as they would like to be more prescriptive, feels that they cannot be, because what the local practice is varies not just from district to district and not just from sector to sector, but oftentimes from local small boat station to small boat station. And they feel that they're unable to basically reach down to that level to tell people how they need to handle that. So I'd love to be able to give you a more prescriptive answer, but the answer I just gave you was as good as I can give you.
Fair enough.
Can I ask one more thing?
Sure.
With any scout group, they must fill out permission slips. Do those permission slips have to be sent with the orders?
No. And in fact, those permission slips should never be in the possession of an auxiliarist. What you're required to do is to visually confirm that a permission slip has been filled out for each of the Sea Scout youth for the period that covers whatever the activity is. And it's okay for the permission slip to be a blanket permission slip for, say, an entire year, but it has to cover that session. So the permission slip should be retained by a Sea Scout leader, but the mission commander, in this case a coxswain, is required to confirm that each of the Sea Scouts has a currently valid permission slip for the activity.
Thank you.
Mhm. Other questions?
There was a follow-up from Chris Ware saying, so they can come to unit outings and meetings? Question mark.
Yes. First of all, they don't need permission slips to come to unit meetings. But if they are under 17, they must be accompanied by by an adult who is either a parent or can function in loco parentis. And as for other activities, let's say it's a joint public affairs event. When we're able to do stuff like that, they'll have to have a permission slip, and you'll have to be following youth protection rules about two deep adult leadership. And incidentally, the two deep adult leadership does not have to be two auxiliaries. It could be an auxiliarist and a parent or a Sea Scout leader, but there has to be at least two adults there. And if the Sea Scout contingent is both male and female, you'll have to have at least one male adult and at least one female adult as the adult leaders. Other questions? Okay. Let's move on to the discussion topics. And as usual, I like to give Bill Smith first crack at this. He has a question he wants to put to the group. And if you're able to give him guidance right now, that's great. If you would prefer to write to him after the fact, he would love to hear from you. So Bill, you want to take a couple of minutes?
Yeah, and first things first, I am working in a number of different agencies, and one of which is this vaccination process that I'm engaged in, which means my time is as tight as it's been in a while. So I need things to be very clear to me if you need help. And what I prefer is contact me via email. If you haven't got my email address, it is bill.smith@cgauxnet.us. Also, if you ever get an email from me, my cell phone and my regular phone are on it, and I'm perfectly willing to take a phone call. We are in a situation where as we grow, we're starting to get people watching what we're doing, more and more so, especially through the Facebook page. Any social media, or frankly, any marketing, is voracious. It takes content. It can take content every day if we can have it. We're not getting enough content, I'll tell you right up front. So this is something I say at about every one of these. Please tell us what we can do to help you, but then help us with stories. And it doesn't have to be complicated. And I will be happy to work with anyone as far as developing a story. We were going to try and do a story on a young auxiliarist / Sea Scout member who is going to go to the academy. She informed me today that she is not ready yet to do that. That process took probably, I don't know, 3-4 hours of backs and forths. If you take that in 50 different things, then you start to see the time constraint. Ron and I are the entire PA staff for this part of our organization. So any way you can streamline things, any way you can communicate to us your needs would be appreciated. I also want to commend A, the Coast Guard, B, the auxiliary. We are getting really good response from auxiliary PA, from the auxiliary, from different Facebook pages. It's gotten nothing but better. So that tells me people are interested. I'm detecting this as well from our own DIROCs. So we are hot right now. And in marketing, if we're hot, this is the time to make sure we stake our claim to our message. So again, as we get into summer season, there's going to be hopefully more activity. Don't be afraid to take a picture. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, art. If it's a good representation of the event, make sure you understand the parameters of taking pictures, especially of minors. But if it's just an event, you don't necessarily even often have to have people clearly pictured in the event. Take a picture and then write what's called a cut line. And that's just a small description. Anyway, any of these things give us the tools to work with. We may not use them, but at least we have them. So that's my pitch. I appreciate work that and contacts that I've made, and I apologize because right now, to be very honest, my focus is helping people get vaccinated because that is a priority for, I think, the entire nation. And I'm doing about 3 vaccination clinics a week. The interesting thing is it is an ICS-based activity. The training that I got in the auxiliary and also in the forest or the fire service earlier is helping immensely with the logistics, which is what I do. That said, also, in any one of your areas, folks are looking for volunteers, and I'll leave it at that because we're trying to get this country vaccinated. And I tell you something, it's a lot of work. Anyway, get a hold of me if you need me.
Thank you very much, Bill. If nobody knows about your news story, it didn't happen in terms of whatever good may have come of it. Let's make sure that we tell our story, and Bill is there to help you. And let's don't assume that he knows it if you haven't told him about it. Okay, I think we had about 12 really great discussion topics. And at this point, we have 5 minutes left. So there's no way that we're going to get through all of them or even most of them. So let me just read through these discussion topics. And maybe what I can ask is that people who have some ideas for how to address them, they can either email them to me, or if you would like to post them on our Facebook group, that would be a great place. Yeah, actually, what I think I'll do is I'll do a post for each of these topics and ask people to weigh in on them. So here's the first question. What problems would be caused by a flotilla being closed due to few members leaving the ship without a sponsor? Could another flotilla pick up the ship as a sponsor? And of course, the short answer is yes. I would think that part of the reason why that small flotilla had sponsored Sea Scouts was that they were hoping that they were going to bolster their own membership. But yes, that is definitely something that you can consider doing. Thank you for that great idea. Here's another one that I think a lot of you are going to be running into in the near future, and probably some of you are already confronting. How are others handling the spin up from virtual to in-person meetings? My ship is having a challenge as people have become accustomed to calling in from home and have set their schedules to that in-person meetings aren't working as well. So what are you going to do to help flotilla membership, ship membership reprioritize their time so that they can go to in-person meetings. I thought this picture was a particularly amusing one. This is the current national flagship, Ship 198 in Lewis, Delaware. And I don't know about the social distancing aspect of this photograph, but I'm at least pleased to see that they're all wearing masks. And of course, they're all also wearing life jackets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post all of these on the Facebook group and ask people to get their ideas in. If somebody wants to talk about them right now, that's fine also. Here's another great one. And Amy, I just love this photograph. This picture was taken at the BSA National Annual Meeting 2 years ago at the Sea Scout exhibit, and we were talking to a group of young ladies who are Scouts BSA members. How are we spreading the word to our BSA counterparts? Perhaps this may get some ideas circulating between districts and shake off some of our COVID dulled brains so we can better think outside the box. One idea that the individual who sent this in had was see about expanding our aim to local Girl Scout units in the area. Of course, another way is to look for public affairs events that the Scouts have. A lot of councils during normal times have Scout shows, which would be a great place for the Coast Guard Auxiliary to show the flag, encourage people to wear life jackets, and get to encourage people to check out the Coast Guard Auxiliary and Sea Scouts. So these were just 3 of about a half dozen really good questions that were submitted. All of the links in today's forum are in this URL right here. And I believe Holly is copying that into the chat box. This slide deck is available at tinyurl.com/staff forum-2021-04. And we are recording this forum, or at least I think we're recording this forum. And once we convert it into a distributable format, we'll post it on the YouTube channel. So I'd like to thank everyone for your efforts. These are trying times. How we deal with them will say as much about us as anything else. You make a difference. Your enthusiasm will help to build a stronger Coast Guard Auxiliary with more younger boaters involved than ever before. We're doing this for the Sea Scouts, but we're also doing it for ourselves. I'm really proud to be working with you, and please let me know how I can help you. And what I'm going to do is, first of all, our next forum is going to be on July 11th, 2030. And the formal part of this workshop is over. I'm going to stop recording. But if anybody would like to stay after and chat and ask your questions or talk about any of these discussion topics, we'll keep the session open, and we can talk among ourselves.